There comes a moment in every man's life, in every woman's life, when they must draw a line in the sand and say, no more. No more fear, no more doubt, no more hesitation, no more listening to that voice inside their head that says they aren't good enough, that they can't make it, that the dream is too big, that the goal is too far, that the mountain is too steep. There comes a moment when you must rise from your mental grave and decide that you will no longer be a prisoner of your own mind. The war you are fighting is not outside of you, it is within, and the enemy is not your circumstances, it is not your past, it is not your failures or your rejections or the opinions of others. The real enemy is the voice that echoes in your own mind when no one else is around. That dark, whispering, crippling voice that speaks in your weakest moments, the voice of negative thinking, you must kill it, not negotiate with it, not reason with it, not wait for it to go away. You must kill it. For as long as that voice lives within you, you will live beneath your true potential. It will steal your joy, it will sabotage your progress, it will strangle your faith. It will destroy everything good inside of you, and it will do so slowly, so subtly, that you won't even notice, until one day you wake up full of regret, full of bitterness, and wonder where all the years went. But that won't be your story, not if you decide today, this moment, that you're going to kill it. Negative thinking is the assassin of destiny. It is the silent killer of dreams. You don't see it coming. You don't see the damage until it's too late. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It doesn't show up with a sword. It poisons your water. It infects your thoughts until you no longer believe in yourself. And when you stop believing in yourself, you stop acting. And when you stop acting, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you start dying. Your mind is the most powerful force you have. It is your greatest asset or your greatest liability. What you feed it determines your future. What you allow to grow within it becomes your reality. And here's the brutal truth. Most people are planting weeds in their own garden. Every time you say, I can't, that's a weed. Every time you say, what if I fail, that's a weed. Every time you doubt your worth, your value, your purpose, that's a weed. You cannot grow the garden of greatness while you tolerate the weeds of weakness. You cannot expect a life of purpose if you are feeding on thoughts of fear. You cannot become your best self if your mind is infected by the disease of negativity. Kill the weeds. Every time a negative thought enters your mind, confront it. Don't let it pass. Don't let it stay. Don't let it get comfortable. Kill it. Ask yourself, is this thought serving me? Is this thought helping me become who I want to be? Is this thought strengthening me, building me, empowering me? Or is it weakening me, discouraging me, enslaving me? If it's not building you, it's breaking you. If it's not lifting you, it's lowering you. If it's not helping you rise, then it's pulling you down, and I'll tell you something. Your thoughts are not facts. Just because you think something doesn't make it true. The mind can lie, especially a mind that has been trained to think small, trained to expect failure, trained to fear rejection, and many of us have been trained that way without even knowing it, conditioned by our environment, by people who settled for less, by teachers who didn't believe in us, by family members who passed on their fears, their limitations, their insecurities. But now that you know, it's your responsibility to unlearn it, to retrain the mind, to rebuild your belief, to feed your faith, your courage, your vision, until it becomes stronger than your doubt. You must take control of your inner world if you ever want to master the outer one. That means getting up every day and choosing the right thoughts, choosing to speak life over yourself, choosing to expect good things, choosing to believe that you were created for a purpose. You were not born to be average. You were not born to be afraid. You were not born to live in shadows and silence and shame. You were born to rise. You were born to shine. But as long as you listen to the voice of negativity, your light will be dimmed, your fire will die out, and your greatness will remain buried. So how do you kill the negative thinking? You kill it with truth. You kill it with action. You kill it with discipline. Every day you fight back. You become the gatekeeper of your own mind. When the thought says, you can't do this, you reply, watch me. When the thought says, you're not good enough, you say, I'm more than enough, and I'm getting better every day. When the thought says, "What if you fail?" you say, "What if I win? What if I succeed? What if this changes everything?" And if you fall, you rise. If you stumble, you stand back up. You don't let the negative thought win. You don't let it have the final word. You train your mind to fight for you, not against you. And you don't wait for the feeling to come. You act before you feel ready. You speak before you feel confident. You move before you feel certain, because feelings follow action, not the other way around. The reason you keep falling back into negative thinking is because you're waiting to feel positive before you act positive. But it doesn't work that way. You must act your way into feeling, not feel your way into acting. You want to kill negative thinking. Start moving. Start talking differently. Start walking with purpose. Start surrounding yourself with people who speak life. Start doing the hard things. Start building discipline. Start investing in your growth. Start serving others. Start believing again. Your mind is like a muscle, and if you don't train it, it will default to weakness. You must condition your mind every single day, just like you brush your teeth, just like you shower. Mental hygiene is just as important. You wouldn't let trash pile up in your house. Then why let it pile up in your head? Take out the trash, every limiting belief, every lie you've believed, every failure you've attached to your identity, every opinion that has held you back, every excuse, every fear. Throw it all out. And replace it with truth. You are capable. You are resilient. You are full of potential. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not what they said about you. You are not what happened to you. You are not broken. You are becoming, and I promise you this, the more you fight for your mind, the more your life will begin to change, because everything changes when your thinking changes. You begin to walk differently, talk differently, show up differently, think differently, win differently. Do you know what separates the great ones from the average ones? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not even resources, it's mindset. The great ones refuse to let negative thinking live in their mind. They starve it, they suffocate it, they ignore it, they override it with purpose and faith and hunger and drive. They understand that every thought is a seed, and they only plant the ones that grow the future they want. You can do the same, but you must decide, you must commit, you must become relentless. Every time you kill a negative thought, you get stronger. Every time you override a doubt with belief, you gain ground. Every time you silence that inner critic, your real voice gets louder. So don't you dare settle. Don't you dare let that voice win. Don't you dare waste another day listening to thoughts that were never meant to define you. Stand up, speak life, declare war on negative thinking, and fight until the only voice that remains in your head is the voice of truth, the voice that says you were made for more, and you are. Because when you rise above the noise in your mind, you begin to see the world differently. You begin to see yourself differently. You stop asking for permission to be great. You stop shrinking so others can feel comfortable. You stop questioning whether you're worthy. You stop rehearsing failure in your imagination. You start creating new mental images of victory, of excellence, of courage, of discipline. And the more you see those images, the more you believe they can be real. Your subconscious does not argue with repetition. Whatever you feed it long enough becomes familiar, and what becomes familiar becomes your identity. That's why so many people feel trapped, because they've become familiar with pain, familiar with fear, familiar with lack. And what's familiar becomes safe, even when it's destroying you. But you're not going to live in that trap anymore. You're going to make a new home in a higher state of mind. You're going to build a new normal. You're going to get so familiar with belief that doubt feels foreign, so familiar with hope that despair has no place to land, so familiar with strength that weakness can't take root. Understand, this is not a one-day decision. This is a lifestyle. This is war. Every single day, your mind will try to drift back into the old patterns. The negative thoughts will try to sneak in again, dressed up in the language of reason, logic, and realism. Don't be fooled. Most of the time, what we call being realistic is just fear in disguise. Realistic is not a virtue when it keeps you locked in a mental prison. Realistic is not noble when it kills your dreams before they ever take their first breath. You weren't born to be realistic. You were born to be relentless. You were born to live with vision, not just sight. Vision is seeing what could be, even when your current reality screams otherwise. Vision is what lifts you out of limitation. Vision is what shuts down negative thinking, because it gives your mind a new destination. You must give your mind something greater to focus on, or it will default back to survival, and survival is not enough. You were not made to simply exist. You were made to expand, to express, to create, to grow, and all of that requires the death of negative thinking, because it's not just about how you feel, it's about how you live. Negative thoughts don't just affect your mood. They affect your motion, they paralyze action, they sabotage relationships, they kill creativity, they destroy energy, and slowly, they kill you. This is why you cannot afford to be passive with your thoughts. You cannot be lazy with your language. You cannot entertain inner dialogue that contradicts your destiny. Every word you speak has power. Every belief you reinforce is writing the script of your life. If you keep calling yourself stuck, you'll stay stuck. If you keep thinking like a victim, life will keep proving you right. If you keep expecting rejection, you'll unconsciously sabotage every connection. You are not cursed, you are not broken, you are not lost, but your thinking might be, and if your thinking is broken, your life will be too. No matter how hard you try to fix it on the outside, everything begins in the mind. Your habits, your attitude, your standards, your discipline, your income, your health, your peace, it all flows from thought. This is why the fight must be internal before it becomes external. Some people spend their whole lives rearranging the furniture in a burning house, trying to change jobs, change cities, change relationships, while never changing their mindset. So the fire keeps burning, and they keep wondering why. The fire is inside, and until you kill the thoughts that keep lighting the match, nothing will change. But once you take that power back, once you realize that your thoughts are not permanent, that your identity is not fixed, that your emotions are not your enemy, you begin to walk differently. You begin to command your day instead of reacting to it. You begin to shift from being controlled to being in control. You begin to see that every negative thought is an invitation to either believe it or beat it, to either submit or stand, to either surrender or grow, and growth is uncomfortable. It forces you to leave behind what's familiar. It challenges everything you've clung to for security. It demands more of you than the old mindset ever did. But what's on the other side is priceless. Clarity, purpose, power, a sense of being alive, a sense of being exactly where you're meant to be, doing exactly what you were born to do. And the moment you start living in that space, your energy changes. Your posture changes. You walk into rooms differently. People feel your presence before you speak. Why? Because you're no longer carrying the weight of lies. You've stopped dragging around the dead body of who you used to be. Negative thinking is heavy. It keeps your shoulders low, your head down, your voice small. It keeps you invisible to the very doors you're meant to walk through. But when you kill it, when you let that old version of you finally die, something greater is born. A version of you that doesn't flinch in the face of challenge. A version that doesn't shrink to fit in. A version that speaks with conviction, moves with confidence, and lives with intentionality. And hear me, it's not that you never hear a negative thought again. It's that it no longer has authority. You hear it, but you don't obey it. You see it, but you don't believe it. It becomes background noise, not a command. Because you've trained your mind to answer to a higher voice, and that voice speaks truth. That voice says you were designed for dominion, not defeat. That voice says your past is a chapter, not a definition. That voice says every time you rise after falling, you win. That voice says greatness is not something you chase. It's something you unlock through discipline, faith, and focus. And every day that you choose to kill negative thinking, you're turning the key. Every moment that you silence the lie and replace it with a declaration of power, you're carving a new path, one that leads you away from regret and into a life that reflects your highest calling. It won't be easy. The pull of the old mind is strong, the comfort of familiar failure is seductive, but comfort is the enemy of transformation, and you weren't built for comfort, you were built for conquest, you were built to overcome what once overwhelmed you. To walk boldly where you used to hesitate, to stand firm where you used to fall apart. That's the power of a renewed mind. That's the power of killing the negative thinking, not just once, but daily, not just when it's convenient, but when it's hardest. Because that's when it matters most, when everything in you wants to fall back, when the doubts feel louder than your faith, when the darkness feels thicker than your vision. That's when warriors are made. That's when your true nature is revealed, not in the moments of ease, but in the furnace of pressure. And if you can learn to rise there, to override the negative thought even when the storm is real, the fear is screaming, and the evidence is lacking, that's when you become unstoppable. That's when the world starts to take notice, because now you're no longer reacting, you're creating. Now you're not waiting for life to change. You're becoming the change. Now you're not praying for a breakthrough. You're thinking in a way that attracts one. And it all started with one decision, to kill the negative thought before it killed your purpose. And when that becomes your pattern, when killing negative thoughts becomes your instinct instead of your struggle, everything in your life aligns differently. Opportunities you never noticed begin to show up. People begin to treat you differently, not because they changed, but because you did. Your energy commands a different response. Your posture signals conviction. Your presence begins to speak before your words ever do, because confidence is quiet. Power doesn't have to announce itself. When your mind is aligned with purpose, when it's free from the noise and sabotage of doubt, the way you show up changes the environment around you. You walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts, not because you're arrogant, but because you're no longer apologizing for your existence, and that confidence isn't fake. It's not the kind you try to wear like a mask. It's not external, dependent on compliments or results. It's internal, rooted in something deeper, rooted in the fact that you know you've trained your mind to serve you, not fight you. That you've built a mental fortress where doubt cannot live, where excuses can't breathe, where fear gets denied access at the door. Most people don't even realize they've let fear move in. Fear takes up residence so quietly. It doesn't knock, it slips through the cracks. It dresses itself up as caution, as reason, as humility. But it's not humility to downplay your potential. It's not wisdom to constantly prepare for failure. It's not realism to live every day bracing for the worst. You were not created to tiptoe through life hoping you don't get hurt. You were created to run, to leap, to climb, and yes, sometimes you'll fall. But you'll never grow wings if you refuse to leave the ground. The people who win are the people who are willing to look their fear in the face and move forward anyway. But you cannot move forward while dragging negative thinking behind you. It clings to your ankles, it slows your steps, it muddies your clarity. You think you're walking toward your dream, but you're carrying so much mental weight. You can't make any real progress, so drop it. Drop the need to know how it will all work out. Drop the habit of second, guessing yourself. Drop the fear of judgment. Drop the obsession with perfection. Drop the lies you've repeated to yourself so many times they feel like truth. And don't wait for permission. Don't wait until it feels comfortable. Don't wait until everyone understands. Most people won't understand. That's not your job. Your job is to know, to decide, to act. To be so locked into the person you're becoming that the noise around you becomes irrelevant. And if your mind is still full of noise, then it's time to detox. You have to get serious about what you feed your thoughts. The music you listen to, the people you follow, the voices you allow in your ear, the content you consume, it all matters. Every piece of input is shaping your internal dialogue. If all you feed your mind is fear, drama, gossip, defeat, you will think in those patterns. But if you feed it purpose, truth, conviction, possibility, you will begin to think and live in alignment with who you really are. And that's the goal, not to become someone else, but to strip away everything false and return to the person you were always meant to be. Before the fear, before the pain, before the labels, before life tried to teach you to stay small, the real you is powerful beyond measure. The real you doesn't dwell in shame. The real you is not intimidated by setbacks. The real you knows that failure is a lesson, not a label. The real you is courageous, disciplined, focused, driven, full of passion, full of purpose. But to live as that version of you, the old version has to die. The one that agreed with the lies, the one that played it safe, the one that stayed silent when they should have spoken up, the one that said maybe later to every opportunity while time passed and life slipped away. Let it die and don't mourn it, celebrate it. That version kept you alive, but it can't take you where you're going. That version was built for survival. You're now stepping into a life built for impact. You're not just here to get by. You're here to shift something. You're here to leave a mark, and to do that, your thinking must match your mission. Your thoughts must be in agreement with your calling. You can't walk in power while thinking like a victim. You can't lead others while constantly doubting yourself. You can't speak life into the world while entertaining death in your own mind. This is where the work must happen, not in your hands, not in your outer world, but right here. In your mind, kill the thought before it becomes a pattern. Kill the pattern before it becomes a mindset. Kill the mindset before it becomes your life. Because every outcome you desire, peace, purpose, wealth, love, fulfillment, lives on the other side of consistent mental discipline. It's not one breakthrough, it's not one motivational moment, it's not one high, energy week, it's daily, hourly, it's showing up again and again and again. It's choosing to speak power instead of weakness, even when you feel tired. Especially when you feel tired, because tired minds default to old programming, and the old programming was designed to keep you safe, not to make you great. But greatness is dangerous to the old mind, because it requires exposure, it requires failure, it requires standing alone, it requires going beyond what you thought was possible, and the old mind will scream, what if you fall? What if they laugh? What if you lose everything, and you must respond calmly and clearly? What if I rise? What if I grow? What if this is the door that leads to everything I was born for? You see, the mind will always ask questions. The key is to change the quality of the questions it asks. Stop asking what could go wrong. Start asking what could go right. Stop asking why me. Start asking why not me. Stop asking what if I'm not ready. Start asking what if this is exactly the moment I was made for. The right question opens the right door, and the right door leads to a new reality. But none of that happens until you stop feeding the wrong thoughts. Until you take personal responsibility for your mental environment, until you say no more, until you stand face with the inner critic and refuse to bow anymore, not today, not ever again. Because from this moment forward you are reclaiming control, not just of your thoughts, but of your destiny. You are no longer the servant of fear. You are the commander of your future, and that future will not be written by chance. It will be written by intention. By clarity, by the kind of inner discipline that separates the exceptional from the average. This war isn't won in a crowd. It's not won in front of cameras. It's not won when others are watching. It's won in the dark. In the quiet, in the moments where no one else sees, but you decide to think powerfully anyway. When you choose not to entertain the thoughts that once dominated your life. When you delete the excuses. When you rewrite the inner script with truth and action. And no, the negative thoughts don't disappear overnight, but they do lose their power when you no longer give them your agreement, when you stop rehearsing them, when you stop giving them energy, voice, and validation. You can't always control what thoughts pop into your mind, but you can control what thoughts you meditate on. You can choose what you believe. You can starve the lies and feed the truth, and when you feed truth long enough, it becomes strength, it becomes instinct, it becomes your natural state. That's the beauty of repetition. What once felt unnatural, confidence, belief, hope, boldness, can become your new default. But only if you practice it daily, only if you affirm it when it feels fake, only if you declare it when your emotions don't match it. That's the test. That's the proving ground of transformation, when you speak life even while you're still surrounded by the residue of the old life. Speak it anyway, not because it's magic, but because it's principle. Words shape thoughts, thoughts shape actions, actions shape habits, habits shape identity, identity shapes destiny, and the domino starts with what you say to yourself when no one's listening. So ask yourself now, what words have you been planting in your mind? What kind of crop have you been growing in your soul? Because if you've been harvesting anxiety, fear, laziness, bitterness, it's time to uproot the seed. Rip it out, uproot every word that says you're not enough. Rip out every phrase that says you'll never make it. Burn every belief that says it's too late. That is not your truth. That is not your portion. That is not the voice of your destiny. Your destiny does not speak in defeat. Your destiny speaks in fire. Your destiny reminds you that you've survived things you thought would break you. Your destiny whispers that there's more in you than the world has seen. Your destiny says, I dare you to believe again. I dare you to try again. I dare you to look in the mirror and say, this time I win, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. You can't afford to carry the weight of negative thinking into the next chapter. You can't afford to waste one more month doubting your own power. You can't afford to let your mind be a playground for every thought that wanders through. You must become the gatekeeper, the guardian, the protector of your peace. You must raise the standard for what is allowed to exist in your mental space, because your mind is sacred ground. You wouldn't let someone walk into your house and spray poison on your food, would you? Then why do you let negative thoughts poison your purpose? Why do you let doubt contaminate your future? Why do you let fear infest the home of your dreams? Enough. It ends when you decide it ends. It ends the moment you say no more. Not later, not tomorrow, now. Now is the time to rise. Now is the time to wake up the version of you that's been silent for too long. Now is the time to destroy the comfort zones built by your past pain. Now is the time to look those negative thoughts in the eye and say, you had your turn, you ruled long enough, but I'm taking back my mind, my energy, my voice, my vision, because everything that ever mattered starts with thought. Every empire, every breakthrough, every invention, every revolution, every transformation, they all started in the mind of someone who refused to accept the lie that said you can't. And you're one of them. You're not average. You're not here to settle. You're not meant to live on the edge of your potential, watching others live the life you secretly dream about. You're meant to build that life, brick by brick. Thought by thought, action by action, and the foundation of it all is mental freedom. Freedom from the fear that says, what if you fail? Freedom from the shame that says you don't deserve it. Freedom from the inner voice that sounds like every critic you've ever heard, but louder. Kill it and replace it with truth. The truth that says, I was made for more. The truth that says, there is no limit on my growth. The truth that says, my circumstances are not my ceiling. And when that truth becomes your internal compass, you no longer get thrown off course by external storms. You walk through them with your head high, not because you're arrogant, but because you're rooted, grounded, clear, focused, and that kind of focus repels doubt. That kind of focus burns through confusion. That kind of focus silences every voice that tries to make you second. Guess who you are, because now you know your mind is your weapon, you know your thoughts are your blueprint, you know your discipline is your superpower. And you've made the most important decision a person can make. You've chosen to win the war within.